Did you know that Red Bull, the team that dominated Formula One for years, arrives at Zandvoort in its worst crisis in over a decade? The incredible thing is that of the 194 points they have, 187 belong to Verstappen. What's really going on inside the team? Before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you think Red Bull can save its season, or is everything already lost? And the big question, will this Grand Prix in the Netherlands be a turning point or the final blow for Verstappen and his team? In this video, we'll analyze how Red Bull arrives at the 2025 Dutch Grand Prix, what problems it faces, and what we can expect from the weekend at Zandvoort. Red Bull arrives at the 2025 Dutch Grand Prix in a completely unexpected situation. The team, which just a couple of years ago seemed invincible, now finds itself mired in fourth place in the Constructors' Championship with 194 points. To gauge this crisis, just look at the gap to the leader. McLaren leads by more than 365 points. Never in recent history has the gap been so wide and humiliating for a team accustomed to being at the top. The most shocking thing is that virtually all of the points belong to one man, Max Verstappen. The Dutch driver, a local hero, has scored 187 of those 194 points. His teammate, Yuki Tsunoda, has contributed just 7. This brutal gap not only highlights the RB21's technical problems, but also a structural crisis that calls into question Red Bull's ability to compete as a true team. Instead of a solid duo, they rely entirely on the talent of a single driver. The Zandvoort Grand Prix isn't just another race on the calendar. It's Verstappen's home stage, with the pressure of tens of thousands of fans hoping to see him shine. However, behind that motivation lies a very different context. Red Bull arrives with a car full of limitations, with minimal development changes, and with a team that seems more focused on surviving the season than fighting for immediate victories. This contrast between the expectations of a Dutch public and the harsh reality of the present turns the Zandvoort race into a point of maximum tension. On the one hand, there is national pride in Verstappen's winning DNA. On the other, there are the mechanical and organizational problems of a team experiencing a storm like never before in the modern era of Formula One. Rumors about what's happening within Red Bull have grown at the same pace as the problems on the track. Laurent Mekies' strategy, based on halting development and focusing on the 2026 regulations, has been interpreted by many as an early surrender in 2025. For some within the paddock, this change of mentality is a clear sign that Red Bull no longer believes it can salvage the current season. Within the internal environment, the situation is equally delicate. There is talk of tension between the engineers and management due to the lack of results. The departure of key figures like Adrian Newey not only left a technical void, but also a morale blow to the entire organization. Helmut Marko has openly acknowledged that the problems began immediately with his departure. These statements are not insignificant. When the team's longtime advisor admits to a crisis, it becomes clear that the magnitude of the situation is much more serious than it appears on the surface. At the same time, rumors about massive signings of engineers from rival teams are circulating widely in specialized forums. There is talk of up to 60 new signings intended to compensate for the talent drain of recent months. This strategy is perceived as a desperate attempt to rebuild Red Bull's technical base from within. However, there is still no official confirmation, which keeps speculation alive and increases the sense of uncertainty. The tension between Verstappen and management has also been noted by the press and fans. Although Max has remained loyal to the team, his words reflect frustration. Max Verstappen has become the clearest reflection of the crisis Red Bull is facing in 2025. His talent remains intact, but the RB21 doesn't allow him to compete at the level he's accustomed to. Verstappen's recent statements are an example of his sincerity and frustration. He has openly admitted that he doesn't believe Red Bull can win any more races this season. This realism, coming from the most competitive driver on the grid, demonstrates the extent to which confidence in the car has plummeted. The relationship between Verstappen and the team has also entered a new phase. Although he remains committed until 2026, he no longer appears to be defending the car with the same enthusiasm as in previous years. His words convey loyalty, but at the same time suggest a certain emotional distance from the project. He knows that without profound change, no matter how much he risks on the track, the results will still fall far short of expectations. This creates a dangerous paradox because the team's most important figure is committed, yet distrustful of what Red Bull can offer him in the short term. Laurent Mekies, as team principal, has fully supported Verstappen. He publicly acknowledges that the Dutchman's talent is the only thing keeping the team competitive. At the same time, Helmut Marko has been clear in pointing out that Adrian Newey's departure marked the beginning of the decline. Both agree that the situation is critical, although their messages have very different tones. Mekies seeks to convey calm, while Marko does not hide his concern. This reflects that even within the leadership, there are different ways of viewing the crisis. The big problem is that the pressure is piling exclusively on Verstappen. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda hasn't been able to deliver consistent results, and that means the entire weight of the championship falls on a single driver. This extreme dependence not only wears down Max, but also exposes Red Bull's vulnerability as an organization. If Verstappen fails in a race, the team is practically out of contention, and that's a clear sign that the project has lost its footing. If Red Bull fails to reverse the current situation, the consequences could be much more serious than they appear at first glance. The first and most obvious is the loss of the dominance they built over more than a decade. A team that used to set the pace in Formula One now risks becoming a minor player, unable to compete against McLaren. On a sporting level, the absolute dependence on Max Verstappen is a huge risk. If the Dutchman were to suffer a physical problem, an unexpected penalty, or simply a difficult weekend, Red Bull would have no way to compensate. With Tsunoda far from the expected level, the team would be doomed to lose valuable points that rivals would ruthlessly exploit. In modern Formula One, where every detail makes a difference, not having a second competitive driver means giving up any real championship aspirations. The consequences are also felt financially. A drop in performance of this magnitude means less revenue from constructors' prizes and less attractiveness for sponsors. Red Bull, accustomed to being at the top, risks losing some of its brand value if it continues to deliver mediocre results. Formula One is not just a sport, it's also a global business where visibility depends on victories, and every defeat weakens the team's position relative to its competitors. Internally, team morale is also suffering. The engineers and mechanics who for years enjoyed the glory of victory now work under the shadow of a car riddled with flaws, and with management that seems to have accepted that 2025 is lost. This sense of resignation could lead to further talent drains, further exacerbating the technical crisis. Without a solid internal environment, it is almost impossible to build a winning project in the short term. The Dutch Grand Prix represents a special moment in the calendar, not only because Verstappen is racing on home soil, but also because it comes amidst the worst crisis Red Bull has faced in the hybrid era. Zandvoort has always been a circuit tinged with orange, thanks to the massive support of the Dutch fans, and that pressure could play a key role. The public expects Max to put on a show and achieve a competitive result, but the reality is that the RB21 isn't up to par with its rivals. This contrast between hope and reality makes this race a decisive test for the team. Red Bull has announced a very limited update package for this weekend. These include minor tweaks to the front wing, suspension covers, and aerodynamic details designed to reduce the understeer that has plagued the car so much. These aren't revolutionary improvements, but rather minimal adjustments that attempt to salvage some stability. Laurent Mekies has already been honest in admitting that development will be almost non-existent until the end of the season, leaving Zandvoort as a race where the difference will depend more on Verstappen's skill than on the team's technical advances. The Zandvoort circuit, with its banked corners and narrow sections, is often demanding for both car and driver. In theory, the track could favor the RB21's residual strengths, especially in high-speed sections where aerodynamic stability is still maintained. However, it also features low and medium-speed corners, the car's most obvious weakness. This means that while Red Bull may shine in some sectors, it will also be exposed in others, seriously complicating its chances of fighting for victory. The key will be how Verstappen manages to extract every last tenth of a second from the car. In past seasons, the Dutchman's talent was enough to make the difference on this same circuit, where he won every edition from 2021 until Lando Norris's surprise victory in 2024. But now he's racing with a car full of limitations and against rivals who have raised their game. The pressure from the home crowd could give him an extra boost, although there's also the risk that a poor result at home could further exacerbate the sense of crisis. On the other hand, Yuki Tsunoda will also have an important role to play, although his options are limited. A good result from the Japanese driver could ease some of the pressure on Verstappen and give Red Bull some breathing room in the Constructors' Championship. However, recent history shows that Tsunoda has had serious difficulties adapting to the RB21, and relying on him at such a critical event seems more wishful thinking than a realistic possibility. In short, Red Bull's arrival at the 2025 Dutch Grand Prix is not just another race, but a reflection of the deepest crisis the team has faced in many years. The RB21 has proven to be a car incapable of competing with the consistency required in today's Formula One, and although Verstappen has practically single-handedly sustained the team, even his talent has limits. And although Max Verstappen continues to demonstrate impressive loyalty, his words of frustration reveal that even he cannot hide the magnitude of the problems. The 2025 season is practically lost, and the only thing left at stake is the pride and resilience of a team that was synonymous with victories. The big truth is that all eyes are on what happens at Zandvoort. It's not just about whether Verstappen makes it onto the podium, but how Red Bull responds to the pressure of racing on the home ground of its star driver. A good performance could serve as a balm for the fans and a sign that there is still hope for the immediate future. But a poor result would only confirm that the slide is deeper than many imagined and that the rebuilding process will be long and painful. So now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Verstappen can rescue Red Bull at Zandvoort, or will this be another sign that the season is lost? Leave your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.